Okay, we're ready.
Welcome to the National Cyber League 2020 Spring Coaches Calls. I'm Dan Manson, Commissioner for NCL. And with us today, you have two of the coolest people you can ever talk with, two of our NCL commissioners, John and Norma. John, Norma, introduce yourself.
Go ahead, Norma. I'll let you go first, Norma.
Hi there. I'm Norma, aka Hush or Hushy. I don't know what.
That is a cool.
I guess today.
I like that, but I'm a Deep Purple fan.
Okay, and I'm Mako McGill. I'm a senior player ambassador for National Cyber League. Really great to be on. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about what is an NCL coach and how to sign up and participate as an NCL coach. So to kind of further that objective, I put a couple polls out there just to kind of get our audience warmed up and get to know you a little bit better. So if you look down on the bottom there, there's a button that says polls. First one, ask if you are already signed up as a coach. And the second one, ask how many years you have coached. So if you could kind of give us a couple answers to those, that'll definitely help us get to be able to adjust our content to speak directly to our audience.
And right then, now, yes, for coaches. So we have coaches in the audience.
That's great. And then the second thing I'd like to call attention to is the ask a question button. It looks like we already have a question popped in. That is the best way to go ahead and lead us with a question. What it does is it allows me to mark that content so that you can go back and review it later. It puts like a little bookmark on that question. Also helps our marketing department and kind of helps us in general to keep the show, aligned. And so if you could, definitely, use those buttons. If not, if you just want to put a question over in the comments, I can always pull it in as a question also. So however you get the questions to us, that's the point. And coaches calls work a little bit different than our Thursday night calls, where on Thursday night calls, it's a lot more of us talking. We really want to try to get as many questions from our coaches because this is for you. This is your content. We're here to help you become better coaches. So that being said, Dan, I think you wanted to say something.
Right. Aaron says he only sees one poll. I only see one poll. Aaron says hello. And I see the first question. I'm going to go ahead and read it. Have you thought about giving coaches more abilities, such as allowing them to form the teams for their students that listed them as a coach? Students have a tendency to go with the group they know instead of going with the group that might benefit them the most. Well, there are lots of ways that you can develop your skills in NCL. I think one of the best ways is through peers. If you're part of a club, I think that's a great way to practice your skills and after the competition debrief about the competition. The coach is a facilitator. The way I look at the value of a coach is of being a passionate facilitator that enables the players to have a place to practice, to have a way to practice, to have a way to work together before the competition and be together after the competition. But I'm curious, Norma, John, what do you think?
Well, I'll let you go first.
Okay, that's fine, because I actually wanted to chime in on this one anyways. I think that one of the most important things to remember is that when you're coaching, a coach is a guide. So I understand what your question is because I've seen it happen as well. But remember to give them guidance, like say, please try to remember to get a couple of people that aren't as skilled, that are new to this, to join in your team so that they can learn from you. And like guide them in that aspect, because I totally understand what you're saying. People are going to be inclined to want to win. It's human nature, especially of people that are competitive. I myself am highly competitive. I get it. I want to be on that top team too. But it's always good to balance it out and to guide them into remembering that they started out new as well. And that they have a lot that they can pass along to the ones coming in, and try to like just generally guide them into making sure that everyone feels comfortable, that say, hey, I get that you want to go with this group, but can we please try to include one or two people that you don't know? Ask them what their skill set is, what they'd like to learn, and place them with the people that have that skill set.
John?
Yeah,
That's
and
it.
okay, great. Stu, you raise a really good point, especially as we start opening this competition up to high school and beyond, right? It is going to take a little bit more coaching. It is going to take a little bit more almost intrusive leadership, right? Where you may have to step in and kind of break up some of those cliques. I think might be what you're kind of concerned with, and there's a couple different ways to do that. One is you really got to make your purpose really, really clear in the beginning. Are we here to win or are we here to learn, right? And it's okay either way, but you have to have that common purpose, established right away. Because if you're here to learn, then it's not about the points. It's not about it. It's about the journey, right? It's not about the goal. Obviously we want to be, also kind of competitive, like Norma mentioned. One way that you could do this is to have like a varsity team and a JV team. And that kind of lets you work a little bit more with the JV team and let your varsity go. Let them be, self-run. And I think there's a lot of value to students leading students and students leading themselves that you learn in those varsity type groups. But definitely in your JV group, I think it takes more coaching and it takes a little bit more kind of hands-on approach there. So I like the idea of kind of splitting it into two teams. If you do get those really competitive, types, I think there's still a value that we can be added there. But definitely, if you're a limited number of players, we don't ever want to, create an environment where everyone feels excluded, right? So, being able, I understand your concern would be to try to give the coaches control and sign students up and put them in your own brackets, if you will, and I definitely think that, you can still do that. It's not necessarily currently enforced through the Cyber Skyline engine. Dan, is there any plans to add anything like that where coaches actually are in more control of their groups?
I know that we're trying to give more visibility to coaches. So in terms of dashboards, in terms of understanding how their players are performing, we're giving more of that information to the coaches. We're making it easier for the coach to see who the students are at their school. So those are some of the things that we're working on providing. But in terms of what the coach, does with the players, I really do think the coach is a facilitator more than a teacher. So the more that the coaches can provide an environment for their players to explore and to learn, I think the better coach you're going to be. The goal, it's not like a traditional classroom. It's not where the teacher is going to be grading. You're going to be giving quizzes and exams. It's a game. And you want to give the opportunity for the players to play the game, to go out on the field, to have their practice, do their pickup games, work in the gym. But that's more of a coach-player relationship than a teacher-student relationship.
Dan, that's a really great point. And, occasionally we keep on getting, questions about, well, why don't we provide prizes? Why don't we, provide some sort of, why don't we, recognize more individual efforts or maybe even, the top teams? And I think it's really kind of what you're saying, as far as like, it's a game, that is designed to build skills. Certainly the report card is going to be very important to, the individual. Right. But there's a new thing that you just added that I really wanted to talk to you about. So it's good that we're both on the same coaches call. We now have a school power index. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So we have different ways that we measure a school on the power rankings. One is by the number of players, one is by team performance, and one is by individual performance. So it's not one factor that causes you to be the number one in power rankings. There's a multiple way of weighting how you get there, but it's pretty cool to me. And we've had the power rankings out for the last year now. So you can see the power rankings for the top schools in spring of 19 and fall of 19, and you'll be able to see it for spring of 20. In addition to that, though, we're going to have a supply-side heat map for schools. So in the next couple of months, you'll be seeing this heat map up on the new website, where you can see for schools by you, for your school, for any school in the country, how many are playing NCL. So if you have a school by you that has a lot of students playing, it's going to be a great way for you to connect with that school. You'll know for all the schools that you normally keep track of and schools that you want to keep track of, how many are playing NCL, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. And it's also going to be a great resource for employers, because employers can see if they want to recruit. If they recruit at your school, there are a lot of players that are doing activities to develop their skills outside the classroom. And that's, to me, the real value of NCL. It stretches you in a way the classroom never will. But now we're going to have a heat map that shows how many are playing at each school that plays NCL.
That's really exciting. I like that, because, that really kind of gives you all three, right? I mean, if you have a lot of students playing, maybe they're not the most skilled, but you have a high degree of participation. I like the idea that somehow, is encouraged by National Cyber League. That's a really, great way to kind of, introduce, hey, it's okay for you to play. We get points just for you being here, and takes a little pressure off, I think, especially for newcomers.
And Aaron has a nice post. It'd be great to see who's playing, because we can coordinate activities outside of NCL. And I completely agree, because once you find a school that's into NCL, they're going to be into other extracurricular activities. They're probably going to have a cyber club. They're probably going to be playing in other competitions. They'll probably be looking for other activities to participate in outside the classroom. I know at Cal Poly Pomona, we have a tech symposium that's run by a club. We have another club that creates their own CTFs. We have a club that runs an IT competition. So if you start to connect with a school that's playing NCL, I think it really will open doors to more types of collaboration.
I definitely agree. Norma, I got a question for you. There are a lot of schools out there that actually don't have a coach. They just have individual players playing the game. What do you think the benefit of a team with a coach would be versus just a whole bunch of individual players?
A coach, in my opinion, can provide the guidance or the structure, like to help ease it along, to make it go smoother. I do feel like coaches are important, even with the whole coaches aren't allowed to make the teams anymore. But you can still provide that guidance that I was talking about. I'd like to flip back to the heat map thing too. Another advantage I can see to that, if you don't mind, is the areas that aren't as densely populated on that heat map. Those are areas that can be reached out to.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So I see that as being another advantage.
So let's see. The theme here, of course, being what is an NCL coach, and then how to sign up and participate as an NCL coach. Dan, you've got a lot of experience coaching, and I know you've done other organizations besides.
Well, I've experienced as a commissioner, but not experienced coaching. But I've worked with a lot of coaches. I've really had the pleasure of seeing some best practices that coaches have. In terms of signing up, the website lets you sign up as a coach, lets you sign up as a player without a coach, lets you sign up as a player to connect with the coach. So we've improved the registration process. And if you have any questions in the future about the registration, please let us know. Please email us at info@nationalcyberleague.org. We get all those emails. But I think one of the best things to be a good coach is to care about what your players do in addition to going to class. Care about them stretching their skills and being willing to provide a way for them to get together to practice, a way for them to network with each other, whether it's through Slack or whether it's through Discord or whether it's through your club meetings. But I think that what a coach does is just as valuable as any teacher, because the teacher is usually a subject matter expert and is teaching a specific class, but the coach is a much broader person in terms of what they're providing for the students. They really are preparing the students to take the playing field, to go into the workforce. What I love about NCL is it's not about learning one specific skill. It's not about just learning networking. It's not about just learning reverse engineering or cryptography. You're asked to develop a variety of skill sets. You get exposed to skills that maybe the classroom doesn't even touch. And as a coach, you can help the players know that they're not alone. You know that they're part of a team, know that they're part of a group, they're part of a community that is developing the skills. I love the Slack channel that Cyber Skyline has, because players get to know each other. In NCL, it's about becoming part of the cybersecurity community. And that's what a coach can help the players do.
Thank you. So I guess that kind of brings up my next question, which is for those individual players, how do they find a coach if there isn't currently a coach engaged?
So at their school, there may be somebody who's teaching, or somebody, it doesn't have to be an instructor, it can be anyone at the school that is willing to sign up as a coach. Basically, they become the administrative point of contact. And one of the reasons that we want you to have a coach, in addition to all the facilitation, is that if anything comes up, any issues come up, we talk to the coach. So if we ever have a violation of any kind, we work through the coach. We don't work directly with the players. But I think there are so many other reasons to have a coach. It just makes sense for a player to find a coach. If you have trouble finding a coach, you should send us an email. You should network with your club. I think if you have a club, it's going to be pretty easy to find a coach. That's what my experience has been, that there is the advisor for the cyber club is usually willing to be a coach, but the advisor may know other people on campus that are willing to be coaches. So that's a way to do it. But I think also what we're doing with the website and with the dashboard of helping connect players to coaches is going to be very useful in the future.
Okay, great. Now, speaking of the dashboard, I kind of wanted to highlight a couple of my favorite features. One is that once you sign up under a coach, then you see everyone else that's on that team, and you also get to see how well they're doing in the individual games. Norma, do you agree with that being like one of the best features, or have you got a better one in mind?
Yeah, I think that that's one of the best features, because that goes back to that whole helping guide them into building their team. You can say, okay, hey, you got a little bit of an unbalance going on. Why don't you consider this? Take
so you're talking
someone
about
with
like
a lower
individual
score.
categories. That's great.
Yes. Well, because you can see, like, it lays it out well enough for you that when it comes time for them to start doing the team event, then you can see who was weak in certain spots, who was weak overall and needs a lot more guidance. And you can use that for your coaching sessions. Like a lot of people use weekly coaching sessions outside of NCL. The teams do, or well, schools do. And you can use that to kind of guide them into, okay, we need to brush up on this. So let's show some examples of this. This is how we do this, without flat out telling them, but you can use that to help shape the teams too. You can see the scores and say, okay, well, this person didn't do so well here. So how about if I reach out to the person that did really well here and say, hey, could you kind of like maybe take them under your wing and show them what you did, show them some techniques that helped you.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point also for like historical purposes. You can actually kind of look at your own program and say, you know what, we're not doing very much with reverse engineering, for example, because no one scores well in that. So we might want to change our, our training up a little bit to kind of address some of the less trafficked areas. That's a really great point. Let's see.
I do want to mention that at Crypto Kate's website, there's an NCL coaching guide. And for any new coach, I think that's a wonderful resource. So give a shout out. Let me go ahead. I can post the link to the coaching guide in here, and I'll do that right now. So that's the link to the Crypto Kate coaching guide, NCL coaching guide.
Now, Fred's in the audience. Fred is also a coach, and he has the distinct honor of being the only player ambassador that is also a coach. And he makes a comment that he uses his upperclassmen to help out the underclassmen in order to keep the club alive. And, I think that's really, important to any club is, a legacy, making sure that there's always one more year, to keep the club alive, so to speak. And then it looks like Kate's joining us too in the audience. And
you have an even better link to the coaching guide. Thank you, Kate. I like your link better.
Matter of fact, I'm going to put that on the call to action button down here, so we can kind of bookmark that a little bit.
While he's getting that up on the screen for you, I'd like to point out that if you are not a coach and have not been, don't be afraid to reach out. Reach out to whoever. Reach out to Dan. Reach out to the NCL Slack. Reach out and just get in there. Jump feet first in and ask. If you're a student and you want to be a coach or you're looking for a coach, reach out to your advisor. Reach out to the department head. Let them know that you're interested and you want this to happen, and you'll get connected.
We truly do have a community of coaches and a community of players. And I have found the coaches that I've talked to are very willing to share their knowledge, share their experiences. Fred has a great post. In my club, upperclassmen are expected to help out underclassmen or the club dies. And, that's true in any academic cybersecurity competition, whether it's Cyber Patriot, whether it's CCDC, NCL. You need to constantly have new players coming in, and the players who have experience need to be mentoring the new players. So you have a very cool cycle going where those that are new get mentored by those that have been around, but those who, after that, you're expected to become a mentor.
So I did want to actually add a little bit of the program to providing resources for coaches. And one of the first resources I'd like to kind of get some feedback from you two on is what if a coach is trying to sign up and are having problems, who do they contact? Where do they go? Dan, who would they contact if they're having trouble with the website signing up?
If they're info@nationalcyberleague.org, definitely. So info. This gets to us. So this is the email that we definitely look at all the time. I think we can also, connect with Franz and Toby with any questions. What I do, if it's a question I think they can answer, I'll just forward the email on to Franz and Toby at Cyber Skyline. If it's a payment question, that'll go to Costas, who's the finance director for NCL. But Kate also says she gets a lot of the emails as well. So we do have people that can answer your questions. But if it goes to info, then I will make sure it goes to the right person. But you can also be connecting with Cyber Skyline or with Kate.
All right. Norma, any other resources for coaches that you'd like to bring up?
Well, I think Dan already mentioned the website is one of the best resources. It has an actual link called resources that pretty much lays it all out. The Slack chat is a good resource. Then the email, like I said, obviously Crypto Kate's blog is an amazing resource. There are very detailed how-tos on it, not just the coaching guide, but that being the first and foremost for this purpose. Yes, and Crypto Kate, as she's saying in the chat, Thursday Night Live is her favorite resource. It is pretty awesome. That's
And
the one where all the players get onto. And
Toby from Cyber Skyline also posted the link for a support ticket to Cyber Skyline. So that's another way to reach out directly to Cyber Skyline for assistance.
And I will say that when you submit a support ticket, because I may or may not have submitted a few in my time, they are very good about responding quickly.
I'd like to add one more resource, which is actually the players. And this is specifically for, I see here in the polls that we have some new coaches or, first-time coaches. I got to say, your players are going to be one of the best resources for you in that they can actually show you the ropes a little bit. I think sometimes coaches get wrapped up in this idea that they have to be all knowing and be the source of all answers. And definitely leaning on your upperclassmen, your veterans that have been through a couple games themselves. I think that the players themselves, there's something to be said for letting the student organization be run by students. And I kind of want to encourage new coaches, especially. I know that I gave a talk at 3CS, and I was approached afterward by a new coach, and she had mentioned that she didn't even have a cyber background, and she was really nervous about all of a sudden being in charge of this group of cyber kids, and I think that that's a common thing in some places, that they don't necessarily come from a cyber background. So I would really kind of emphasize, to make it as student run as possible. And like Dan said, you're more of a facilitator at that point, and just kind of there to keep everyone on track. Schedule the practices and make sure that everyone knows when the next meeting is.
Right. Kate brings up another good point to talk about ethics, and that's really one of the most important roles for the coach, is to keep the kids from getting in trouble, from doing something that they shouldn't be doing when they're playing the game. So the coach is a facilitator, but the coach is also one that explains the rules of the game.
And then Fred makes a really good point. Bring snacks.
Yeah.
That's always important. Yeah, I think Kate agrees with that one. So snacks are important. I know that we've had our own club for a while, and this last year definitely we always have snacks, and it seems like somehow we get people to come back more often that way. All right, so we have just a couple more minutes. We like to keep these Tuesday shows somewhere around about half an hour or so. So, Dan, I just want to give you a couple more minutes to add anything that you'd like about
Sure.
what an NCL coach is and how to participate more.
So to me, it's one of the most fun things that a faculty member at a school can do, because you don't have to worry about the grades. I would emphasize that if you're a coach, think about the experience, think about the process, think about what the kids learn by playing as an individual, playing as a team, but collaborating with each other to get to that point where before they take the playing field. It's not about the score. It's much more than that. And each season they play, they will get more and more excited about what they're learning.
All right. Norma, anything to add?
I just want to add that I firmly believe that if we don't take on the responsibility of going out and coaching the ones that are coming in, they could go the opposite direction. And that ethics line is really thin. So we have to look at it in the perspective, do we want them on the good side, or do we want to have to be hunting them down later?
Mm-hmm.
Really good point. Okay, so I just kind of like to wrap up the show here, and definitely thank Stu and Aaron, our coaches that have joined us for this call. Feel free to invite more people every Tuesday. We're going to try to keep this going. Dan, do you know what our topic is for next week?
I'm looking here. Next week is coaching individuals versus teams.
Great. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing you both there. And
the team game is really for fun. The individual, it kind of gets your juices going, but team competition, you should really look at as pure fun.
All right. Well, thank you for attending, and we're going to go ahead and close this out. The broadcast will be recorded, or it has been recorded. It'll be available in a couple minutes after we close the show for download or for people to go back and reference later. So thanks. Appreciate your time, and good. Happy coaching, I guess.
Thank you, everybody.